everyone, and welcome back to another Cooking Matters cooking class. I'm Brandon, and I will be your instructor today, just as I was last week. I hope everybody enjoyed last week's video. Last week we touched on a couple of different things. Not only did we prepare a recipe, but we talked about the basics of using a knife. We talked about proper hand washing, making sure before you handle any of your food that you properly wash your hands for 20 seconds using soap and water, and then also rinsing your food. And what this does is removes any chemicals or any residues, dirt from your food, and will create a better end product. I also hope that everybody was able to complete their engagement activity this past week and was able to incorporate a little bit more physical activity into their day, whether that was just a 5-minute walk outside or taking the stairs, so that we can slowly be moving towards that healthier lifestyle. For our recipe this week, we are doing a step-by-step stir fry. You can find the recipe on page 68 in your Cooking Matters book. The reason I chose this recipe is because it is a framework recipe. It's not a set in stone, use this, use that. You get to choose. So you get to choose what veggies you use. You get a choice of 2 to 3. You get to choose what protein you use, what flavoring you use, the sauce, and what grain you use. So for our recipe, we're going to be using 1 cup of rice, 2 carrots, some broccoli, a green pepper, some chicken. For our sauce, we're going to be using lemon juice, soy sauce, and cornstarch. So when we look at our My Plate sheet, we can see that we have our vegetables covered with these 3. We have our protein covered with the chicken. We have our grains covered with the rice. We do not have any dairy, and we do not have any fruit except for the lemon juice. So we have 3 of the 5 in our My Plate diagram here. 3 of the 5 groups qualifies as a complete meal according to the My Plate curriculum. Before we begin, please take 20 seconds to go over and wash your hands thoroughly. Now that our hands are properly washed, our first step is going to be getting our rice on. That's going to take the longest to cook. I started out by rinsing off our rice using just a little mesh colander. And then what I did is I dumped that into our medium-sized pan here. Whenever you do rice, you put in your dry rice, and then to figure out how much water you're supposed to put into the rice, you want the water to be from the top of the rice to the top of the water about 1 knuckle. So it's about 1 inch. And so we use that measurement. You only want to do this with clean hands, and you only want to do it if you're cooking for people that would be okay with this. But using that 1 knuckle measurement above the rice, works flawlessly. It's amazing. Otherwise, it's usually a 2-to-1 ratio. But I would always recommend that if you're buying like a store-bought prepackaged rice, that you check the instructions on how to properly cook that. So what we're going to do is our rice and water is already in there. I'm going to turn this on pretty high because I really want to get this water going pretty quick and warmed up. Once the water starts boiling, I'll turn the heat down. We'll let that cook until the water is completely gone. And then we will cover it, let it steam for about 5 to 10 minutes, and you will have perfectly cooked rice. The utensils we'll be using in today's recipe are a colander, a small bowl with a fork or whisk. If you have a whisk, that would work better. A sharp knife, 1 medium-sized pot, a pan, and measuring cups, measuring spoons, and 1 cutting board. Alright, back to our other ingredients. Our first step is going to be washing off our vegetables. So we don't have any fruits, so we don't have to worry about that, but we're going to go ahead and rinse off our vegetables to get those ready for chopping. And so we're going to start with the chicken. That's what we're going to want to cook first here. It's going to take the longest out of all these things. We have our vegetables already rinsed off, so they're ready to go and be chopped up as well. We're going to start by dicing this chicken. So what I do is slice it. I slice this piece off, and we'll do slices all the way down. It's really important when you're doing stuff like this to make sure that your knife is sharp. Believe it or not, it's safer chopping with a sharp knife than it is with a dull knife. A lot less accidents happen with sharp knives, and you don't have to use as much effort to get through whatever it is you're cutting. So we'll dice this up into little squares, and then we're going to put a little bit of canola oil in the bottom of this skillet. I should have done this first before I started dicing my chicken. You really don't want to handle anything else. Once you start handling raw meats, you really don't want to be handling anything else until you wash your hands. Once I cook this chicken, I'm going to want to wash this cutting board and sanitize it before I start cutting any of my produce over here. Now, I know we decided to go with chicken on this recipe, but you could have easily substituted this chicken with any kind of beef, seafood. You could even use tofu if you're a vegetarian. That's what's beautiful about these framework recipes, is that they allow for creativity and for you to make them to meet your own needs. Now that our chicken is diced up, I'm going to wash everything up, wash my hands, wash our cutting board, wash our knife to make sure that we don't contaminate any of the rest of our food. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys real quick what's going on over at the stove. We have our chicken that we just started. We're putting that on before we put any veggies in there. We've gotten everything washed up, and then we also have our rice over here simmering. So that's all happening while we move back over here to start working on preparing our vegetables. Okay, now that our chicken is on, our rice is over there cooking, we're going to start chopping up our vegetables here. You all learned how to do a pepper last week. Again, I had mentioned last week how I used a wrinkled pepper. I actually did that again this week. This is another great dish to use up old, kind of ugly looking vegetables that aren't quite bad yet. Anytime you cook vegetables is a good time to do that. It's typically when you're eating things raw that you don't want to have them look bad or want them as fresh as possible. So we're going to begin with this broccoli here. We're just going to cut the broccoli florets off here, just like that. If there's any big ones, you could cut them in half. I like mine a little bit smaller. I don't like getting big chunks of broccoli, so I usually go through and kind of chop it up a little bit, just make smaller pieces. The other vegetable I wanted to show you guys is how to do carrots. So you guys are going to be getting these bigger carrots in your box this week. What I always prefer to do is peel these. It kind of gets that rough skin off, any dirt. And I've already peeled this one, but all you need is a peeler, and you just run it down through there. Make sure to use the peeler pushing away from you. You don't want to come towards you. Peelers are sharper than they look. I've cut my finger pretty good with a peeler before. So always be sure to keep your fingers back. Keep the blade moving away from you, not towards you. So once we have this peeled, we will chop it up into little pieces about a 1/4 inch thick. Down towards the end here, we might, even once they're chopped, cut them in half again. And then with this, we're just going to cut it up like we did last week. Cut it up into slices, and then we'll take those slices and dice them up in just little squares. And you can see when I'm doing the carrot, I don't have a lot to worry about when my finger's away from it. But you'll see how I hold the carrot changes once we get down to the end here. You just do not want your fingers to get near that blade. So you just want to barely be holding onto that thing on the end there. And once you get down to that last piece, if you don't feel comfortable slicing that, just cut it the other way. And you can quarter that pretty easily and safely. And so then you still have a little piece of carrot, but you didn't risk chopping a finger off. And then I'll do the same thing with our pepper, and then we'll finish up our chicken over there, throw in our veggies, and complete this meal. I also want to mention that as we talk about this recipe framework, I know I don't want to be too redundant, but there's plenty of substitutes you could do besides the carrot, broccoli, and pepper. You could do snow peas, you could do zucchini, you could throw some mushrooms into this, tomato. I mean, really, the sky's the limit, just whatever your taste preferences are. So play around with some of these different vegetables and meats and how you use them together. It's a great way to learn what flavors go together and which ones don't. Okay, all our veggies are diced and chopped now, so everything's ready to go. We're still waiting on the chicken to just finish up here. Once it's done, I'll take the chicken out of the skillet. We'll put this into the skillet, let it cook for about 10 minutes. I don't have them with me, but you guys all received a little bit of ginger and garlic. Once our vegetables have cooked for about 10 minutes, we will then add ginger and garlic to it, let it cook in that for a little bit longer, add back in our chicken and our grains. We'll make our sauce, and we'll have a complete meal. While our chicken is finishing up over there, I also want to mention that on page 23 of your booklet, you can get some really good ideas of what fruits and vegetables substitute well. So you might not want to substitute a citrus fruit with strawberries, but you might substitute strawberries with blueberries. So it gives you some good ideas what make good substitutes in different recipes. So be sure to check that out, review it, and you can also use it as a reference in your future cooking. All right, last but not least, we're going to make our stir-fry sauce. We're making a lemon stir-fry sauce. So all you need for this is your lemon juice, your cornstarch, all your soy sauce. So these soy sauce packets are 1 teaspoon. We'll need 3 soy sauce packets to make a tablespoon. It calls for 3 tablespoons, so we'll need all 9 of those. 3 tablespoons of the lemon juice, 2 teaspoons, of the cornstarch. We'll dump it all in this bowl, mix it all together, and we'll have our sauce. Alright, so I got it cleaned up a little bit here. We got our veggies on now. Our chicken off there. Our sauce is ready. Our rice is ready in there. And so once these veggies are done, we're going to top it with some of the sauce there. Let it cook for another minute or 2, and then we'll serve all that over our brown rice. Alright, congratulations, you finished lesson 2. We have our finished bowl of chicken stir-fry here with veggies. Before we take off here, I want to touch on our engagement activity for this week. So this whole lesson has really been about how do we explore and use different kinds of vegetables and ingredients within our cooking. So I want to challenge each of you to come to Lost River Market or wherever you feel comfortable shopping to select one piece of produce, it could be fruit or vegetable, that you've never tried before or rarely eat, and to use it this week and eat it. If you come to Lost River Market for your vegetable, we will give it to you for free. That's only 1 fruit or vegetable per person, but we will make it free of charge to you because we want you to try some new things in your diet. You never know. You might find something that you've never tried that you really love. If you have trouble with how to use the fruit or vegetable that you choose, be sure to email me. I will include my email in the Facebook Lesson 1 post. It's brandonquery123@gmail.com, and I will help you find a recipe on how you can use what you choose. Thank you all for listening today, and happy cooking.